Oh, well, I can send you
Okay.
something.
Here we go. We're live.
Yeah, because you were standing in front of the couch,
Yeah.
which is gray, and your pants are gray, and your shirt is brown and green, and you were standing in front of the plants. So I literally did not see you.
Literally.
Literally! I literally did it. I forgot how to act, everybody.
It's a problem.
I better figure it out between now and tomorrow.
How to act. But there's a
I wonder
YouTube
I wonder,
channel for that.
I was gonna say, I wonder if I looked that up, like what would happen.
How to act. I bet there's like a wiki how, those like
The wiki is very presumptuous about what they can instruct people to do.
pretty much anything.
Yeah. There's probably a wiki how on like attaining nirvana.
Probably.
They're very like, I keep being like, oh, okay, you guys.
Even like more esoteric things, yeah, like how to love yourself or something
Yeah.
like that.
Is there a how for this?
Just step one.
Plug it in. Aditi and an ex of hers used to have this really funny, I thought,
Mhm.
ongoing joke where they'd be like, step one, get excited. Step two, plug it in. Just like about, it doesn't matter what.
Just get excited.
Get excited.
Yeah.
Plug it in.
Yeah.
I don't know what the joke was, but it was very funny to me. He gave her a t-shirt that I thought was so funny. There was a crop circle on it. And it said, crop circles. Because sometimes corn just needs to lie the fuck down. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Seriously?
Yes. I think it's so funny. I'm still talking about a t-shirt she had like 15 years ago. I made that shirt.
You need to find the person who created that shirt.
Mm.
Shake their hand.
What a good
Or maybe
shirt.
that was a team effort.
What a good shirt. It's such a sneak attack. You think it's going to be about crop circles?
Then it's really about corn. I'm like, oh, it hits so many levels for you.
It's not about corn.
Isn't it?
No. It's like the most impractical explanation in the whole wide universe for a phenomenon that people come up with feasible explanations for.
Oh, you actually think it's like a feasible...
No, crop circles?
No. This little thing on the t-shirt is actually trying to explain crop circles.
Oh, of course not. It's a joke.
No, I think it is. It's trying to explain.
Okay. Well, why do they do it in that way? And why is it only this corn and not the other corn? It's not in the crop circle.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. Like, why does the center corn not get to lie down?
Exactly. Do you think crop circles have one shape?
Don't they?
I don't think so.
There's trapezoids.
No, they tend to be like to have like circular qualities, but they're like more complex a lot of times.
I do not know anything about crop circles.
Are you serious?
Yes. I think
so
whenever I
funny.
see aliens, I would just run the other way.
Why?
It doesn't seem like a good path to go down.
What?
Like,
Oh my god. So this one is obviously not one of them, but yeah, this is what people are generally talking about. They're not like ass circle with like
why did I?
you were like the middle corn. I was like, what middle corn?
I was literally thinking like there's a cookie shaper. It's just been like,
Yeah,
that's
a donut. So what's in the middle if it's cookie?
You know, like when you're cutting it, like cookie cutouts,
Mhm.
like that.
Right, but what would be in the middle?
Corn. Like when you're shaping a cookie.
I do understand, but that would be a very subtle crop circle.
It would be. that'd be from a minimalist alien.
Yeah,
friends.
there's just like one row of corn would be
Simple.
flattened.
Yeah.
No, I think it's funny because it's the least feasible. Like, and imagine if that were true, that corn just happened to lie down in all these like sophisticated shapes. It's hilarious.
Maybe. That makes me think about those that video that you shared with me about the geometry of music, of sound. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Maybe that's what's going on.
I am very intrigued by the fact that you think aliens are like a bad neighborhood that you just avoid.
Yeah, because I'm afraid of being crazy. So I'm like, that's what the crazy people look up in their internet searches. I'm not going there. It's like the last frontier. I've pretty much looked up everything else.
Interesting. Emily used to have a really bizarre aversion to them when we were in college. She'd be like, "Fuck aliens," and she was hostile.
Towards aliens?
Yeah, no. I was like, you realize this is just a concept. Like, who are you? Who are they? She was like, they're pretty. I don't know. She had a whole thing about it. Now she loves them.
Oh.
Yeah, she'd be like, no, they can't come here.
You're gonna take our jobs.
Yeah. They are going to take our jobs.
Great.
And you're
They
always
already
like,
did.
it's British actors and Australian actors.
Yeah. They already took the jobs. Maybe the coronavirus is just aliens. And they took our jobs.
You mean that while a bunch of people are at home, there's aliens doing their jobs at their places of work?
Yeah,
Like there's
all those
aliens at the
businesses.
DMV?
Right. Yeah, because the aliens were like, we need driver's licenses.
We need
and
infrastructure.
we can't go out in public.
No.
So let's shut everything down. And then let's have our own DMV. Yeah.
We'll just use their expertly crafted buildings.
all those hair salons that have shut down.
We'll use their sophisticated nail salons.
It's genius.
Just,
They shut the world down. We're all staying at home. We don't
I think the world's open, by the way.
Yeah, is it?
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. They're gonna be the ones who suffer for this.
They, the people who reopen.
No, the like.
I don't mean. I mean like the people who initiate the reopening.
What I mean is like. The curve is rising in all these like conservative states and districts right now. So like you're gonna shoot yourself in your own foot by being like, we're opening up. Because he's opening up purely because of economic and cosmetic reasons.
Cosmetic.
Meaning like, yeah, what
It looks
like.
better.
Yeah. And they're screwing themselves. I had a mini argument with someone on Facebook today. But the blood pumping was good. No, it really wasn't. He was most unworthy.
Who was this person?
I don't know. I mean, I can probably find his name, but,
I mean, like,
but not a person I know.
yeah. What was the context? How did you get into a fight?
He commented on a post of mine.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I will take this bait today. Because you're a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm.
You look really worried.
Yeah. Why? It's going down.
Why are you worried?
This is why comments make me scared. This is why I don't review on Yelp.
Because of the searing pain that I experienced today?
Yeah, like when you get into that, does your heart start beating really fast?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Of course.
You're just like, okay, we're doing this.
Well, it depends. If I think it's important, if I think it matters, if I think it's like if there's several things to check in on,
Mm-hmm.
and if the answer to a lot of those is yes, then yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we can win a lot of arguments.
Did you win?
I don't know, I didn't check. But it's like pretty early on, I was like, I'm not going to respond to the other parts of that message because it didn't make any sense. No, I didn't say that. I said because I've already addressed them.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Imagine it's like something really stupid. Like a stupid meme.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. No, it was something about police violence.
Was it what you posted on Insta?
Yes.
Oh.
Just automatically, I think, goes to Facebook, which took me up until like last week to realize.
Yeah.
I
If
don't.
you had it set to do that.
I don't understand anything anymore. So I just assume when I post something that it's getting emailed to all of my exes because
Now
why
the
not?
world knows. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of these fucking dumbass comments like 100 black men get shot in Chicago every day by other black men. No one says anything about it. Like, I'm amazed I actually even engaged.
I don't know.
You don't know what.
Sorry, I had like a little dialogue in my head there.
Yeah,
Part of me
it's
was
very
like,
quiet.
I know, I got really quiet and I thought a lot of things, and then I finally just said, I don't know. Part of me was like, well, good for you.
Who?
You
Oh,
for engaging. And that's, I don't know what conversation he's having. Seems like a completely separate conversation.
It does seem like a completely separate thing, but that's because it's a fucking straw man, which is all. This is how these things go.
Mhm.
You're saying this, and they're like, over there,
Yeah,
look at that fucking fire, there's a house on fire. And they're like, what?
yeah,
Who's talking about that?
yeah.
So I literally wrote back being like, I don't know if what you think I was saying, but if your interest is in cause of death statistics, then your campaign should be against heart disease and diabetes and hypertension, stroke. If this is about like who kills the most,
Right.
then that's who kills the most.
Yeah, but that's not right.
Yeah, obviously not. And I said like, to me, what I'm actually attempting to talk about here is abuse of power and blah, blah, like whatever the issues were. And then he wrote back saying some other version of, you asked a bunch of black families who killed their kids and they're not going to say, I don't know. I was just like, I'm not going to address this like black on black violence bullshit. And that's what I didn't respond to. So, and he was like, you never do a story on blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't do stories. What are you? Who are you? Why are you even here?
You're
did
fake
you,
news now.
how did you find my page if you think I'm a journalist?
Yeah, right. Oh, so this isn't like a Facebook friend.
No!
Who is this guy?
I have no idea. That's what I'm
Oh
saying.
my
I
god.
think I have Facebook friends who talk about black on black violence.
I don't
They'll
know.
get
Like there could be
bounced.
like a weird acquaintance.
Yeah.
Who you're like, I don't know who you are. Sure,
Mhm.
I accept.
Yeah, no, I don't really have a personal Facebook. I don't have any kind of Facebook.
Yeah, you're rarely on Facebook, right?
Yeah, and then when I'm on Facebook, this is what I'm dealing with.
Ah. Yeah, and then that also makes me want to go off in a different direction, but I'm like, no, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's not.
That's the stupid distraction. Anyway.
Way more black kids are killed by this. Like, it makes my eyes roll so hard in the back of my head. I'm really not sure they'll come back. I said something about like the reasons I posted this are because of concerns about abuse of power, systemic prejudice, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of which I said, and a system that prioritizes the rights of law enforcement so much more than the rights of the people that they're supposed to protect, that that it renders these people like to be treated like non-humans. And he was like, "You think black kids treat other black kids like humans?" And I was like, once again, even if I were to engage with what you're saying, it's got nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with it.
That is how so many conversations go in the world. This is one of my primary, like, if I have a pet peeve or whatever, I don't know, if there's a thing that like persistently nags at me, it's this.
It's like, how would you put it into one sentence? It's like using any conversation.
People are addicted to straw man arguments.
Yeah.
And they squirrel away, and you're the nut job if you try to keep it on track. Because I think people in these circumstances think that I'm like exacting, and maybe I am. But I don't think it's exacting to say like, let's continue to talk about the same thing, not just. What does that have to do with anything?
Right. They're commenting, like, first of all, they're initiating it because they're commenting on something specific.
Yes. So there's a topic. Like,
So if you're going to comment on something, like, you can't comment on something about something completely different. I mean, you can, but then if the person is like, let's bring it back to what started this, and they're like,
it's not even like people don't even feel the need to acknowledge that. Like I said, he just went into another version of it, which is, you think that they treat each other like human beings? Like, he took one thing that I said about not being treated as human beings and used that as a point to begin to freestyle. Rather
what's
than
his thesis
taking-
basically? That like black people are more violent than white people? Is that what he's trying to say?
maybe. I was like, I wouldn't call that the root of the issue, being that that's not the issue at all. And okay, like, even if in some absurd world we stipulate that that is the case and he's right about it all, it's still not cool for the police to be like, it's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, the police's job is to serve and protect.
Yeah, that's what this is
And if
about.
they're not doing that and they're using their power, there's a problem with that.
It's got nothing to do with how
Exactly.
demanding tiger moms are. Like, that's got nothing to fucking do with what we're talking about. Yes, other things happen in the world.
Basically.
And the like demand for conversations to be specific and coherent is very low. Like I don't think that would seem like an atypical back and forth on his side. Because that's what it's like when people talk about stuff. Talk about the issues. It's like that stupid all lives matter bullshit. It's like you're fighting against a premise that you created. Everything is a straw man. You make like an allegation of what is not being said, and you like beat that thing to death. And I'm like, how messed up is this? It's like, okay, but no one fucking said it. All lives matter? Like, way to deliberately misunderstand. It's the most bullshit thing I think I've ever. They're pretending to think something. They're pretending to think that that's what Black Lives Matter is about.
Like they know that's not what it's about.
I think they have to.
They're like, oh, wait. We want a slogan too.
They're like, why should they matter more than other people? But like, it's not
Black Lives Matter more.
Yeah. No one is saying that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the like conservative, I feel like, reactions to stuff like this are responses to things that are not. Like bringing up things that have to do with the accessibility of abortion and certain things becomes about like murdering children. That's really. So thank you. It was very dramatic. And we get that we're very into babies. But it's kind of like how is this passing for a conversation? When people just incoherently talk like in this way.
Yeah. Well, it brings up, why do people talk? Like, why comment on something?
Right.
And I don't always know.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that things just get like weirdly associated in people's minds. So to them, to this guy, maybe it is the same thing. Maybe to him, like, to the extent of his understanding, it's the same thing. It's the same conversation.
I think people do think it's the same conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because the standards, I think, are really low. You don't demand for people to be freaking talking sense.
Yeah. Like, I think there's a lot of like just vitriol and emotion behind most things.
Which is fine. You can't take emotion out of discussing intense things.
But there's like an intention there, right, that you said, like making sense.
Yeah, like if we're not holding people to like, let's make an actual argument that's coherent, then like how do we even, we're not even at square one.
Right.
We're at square like -76 because we've gone off in that fucking direction, chasing some like stupid thing that's not happening. Yeah. Ugh. So weird. It really didn't take up that much of my day. I was sort of quick and casual about it.
Oh,
The exchange.
It's still, I don't know. That's a weird thing to happen.
I could not care less what this person. And maybe that's not a very tolerant thing to say. But in the exchange, I was like, I can't engage with this. There's no point. can't even get on the board. There's not even.
That's true. I wonder if anyone like really engages in. I think Twitter is the worst place for this kind of back and forth. But yeah, does anyone like really engage with like whatever dumbass comment gets thrown out there? And it's like, no, I'm gonna change your mind, or like whatever this human being is going through.
No, I think it has more to do with what you were saying about not wanting to play the girl in the well, which is that people aren't okay with that being the narrative, that being the voice actor. So
Yeah.
they have to add a different one to be like, no, no, no. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to influence the overall discussion. Like it's important to get. They feel that it's important to get the perspective in their perspective. This probably happens on both sides.
You're talking about like the guy who made the comments. Like,
I'm
or
talking about
anyone who
Twitter.
makes
Like
Twitter, yeah.
why people get in public Twitter wars. It's not necessarily change that individual mind.
Right. It's the broader.
It's that can't be the last. Like I'm not going to leave that. I'm not going to leave that. Because like everyone has a right to their opinion and stuff is well and good until it influences systems. And that's why we're here. We're not here because people disagree. It's because of the influence of prejudice on people's like on legislation, on actual things. It's like I don't know what the better option would be on Twitter. I don't.
Yeah. Do you think you ever win?
It depends on win what.
Exactly. Like you win an argument. Let's say it's just that simple. Like there's a back and forth on Twitter. I don't know. And you win the argument like soundly. To me, that doesn't feel like winning.
How would you know?
I wouldn't, because I've never pushed it that far. I don't know. I'm just like, oh, I feel so uncomfortable. Like I have a pit in my stomach right now, and I'm like, why?
I mean, it's a thing that
Because that person isn't convinced. You're just your point of view wins, and maybe it is like better for people. That person loses.
maybe it's better what?
Maybe it's like better for most people overall, but that person loses.
Which person?
The person you're having the argument with.
Okay.
Yeah.
And therefore,
I don't know. I'm not okay with that.
you're not okay with a person going down.
Yeah.
That's what this whole thing is about, though. These people getting like murdered in the streets.
Right. No, I'm not okay with that either. But
So to worry about the hurt feelings of someone on Twitter is like, what is it? Rearranging the deck chairs or whatever in the Titanic.
Mhm.
It's like it's a infinitesimally small portion of the loss that is occurring.
yeah, it's
But people are losing their like lives and families.
Yeah.
So in the context of that, assuming that the discussion or the argument or whatever is about that, then I have less than no problem with somebody on Twitter losing the feelings experience. But you don't want anyone to feel bad ever.
No,
No.
pretty much no.
That's interesting.
Yeah, pretty much no.
That's interesting. That can be used to justify literally anything.
Mhm.
Not wanting anyone to be upset could be used to justify literally any course of action.
Yeah,
So it's impossible for it to be a guiding principle, is what I'm saying.
what about like pacifism?
From what I know, pacifists still demand equality.
Yeah, they're still fighting for something, and they're not necessarily. There's just a non-violence towards it.
Which I don't think Twitter is generally violence. But you were saying you don't want anybody to feel that. And I definitely do.
You know, I think I was raised, and I don't know if I was raised this way, but like the message I got across from my parents was to respect every person's point of view,
Mm-hmm.
every single person.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're breaking that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get that it's like, whatever, it's a place to be. But beyond just like, I think it runs deeper than just a like, oh no, 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 no. Like I need everyone to be okay. It's it's like almost like a code that gets broken. If you put your feelings above someone else's, you know?
I don't know that it necessarily is about putting your feelings. Like that doesn't have to be what's happening.
But it kind of is. Like you could be on the quote unquote right side, but it is like your feelings versus the other person in that moment.
Okay. But based on that, everyone's opinion is valid. Like, that would be true only if we lived in a place with no gravity. If we lived in a place in a world with no power. If we lived in a world with no money. Like all of those things make this a place like it's not reality. We aren't each like just our own perspectives. Because some people's perspectives control life experiences of a lot of other people.
Yeah.
So it that ship sailed millennia ago. And if it is then about never injuring anything and anyone, it's a methodology to follow pretty much anything. Like you can end up under a tyrant that way, and you could end up a Nazi that way, not wanting to upset people.
Right.
Like there's no actual there's no directional, like there's no principle there's no like advisory principle.
Yeah, you're not fighting for anything, you're just avoiding someone feeling bad.
Right, you're sitting it out. Which is a choice.
Yeah, and I don't know how to break from it. Or if I should or if I want to. I'm totally honest.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're different. Like there's fighters in this world. Thank God for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could be them. And I don't know if that's comfortable. Like it kind of sounds to me from your perspective like that's nice, like that's privilege.
That is what privilege is.
Mhm. So for you, like getting to sit it out is like, yeah, because you're in a position to.
Yes.
And if your life was at stake, you wouldn't have that choice.
Or if you were watching your friends get murdered around you.
Yeah,
Or
I
if
don't
you
just mean
lost a
my
kid.
life. Yeah.
What do you mean you don't just mean?
I said if my life was at stake. Yeah, not just my life, my communities, my families. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're not the one at knife point, therefore you get to decide whether or not to engage and how much to engage. But a lot of people are not getting to make that decision, whether or not to. Yeah, it's not a choice. Choice, I think, is really central to privilege, like whatever kind of privilege you're talking about. Economic privilege, all the different kinds.
Okay. I can see myself being in that situation and still not engaging in a certain way. You know, it's like people whose like family has been murdered and then they like forgive their murderers. Is that a completely different thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in a larger sense, to me, this is about like what's right and wrong.
Mhm.
It's not about personal. It's not about personal balances, interpersonal balances.
Right.
Because if someone murdered your family and you forgive them, that is a thing that's happening here. The thing that people are all up in arms about is a much more pervasive, larger, systemic, moral question. Like, what kind of a society do you want to live in? What do you think is worth standing up for, and what do you think is not? Because especially the U.S., I think, formed through protest. It's formed through this kind of like influence, like the voice of the people, is crucial to that's what democracy is. So this is how it's forged.
So it is a war.
What do you mean? It is a war.
Like there's a them and there's an us.
Ooh, where did you get that?
Protest.
I don't know if there's a them and an us in every protest, but yeah, there's a binary situation going on, usually. But it's not entirely binary. Like obviously men were protesting for women's rights.
Yeah.
So it's like who's the we? I don't
And yeah, that can be like very undefinable. But with every fight, there's like something you're fighting against.
Mhm.
Yeah.
like there's people who think that affirmative action is bullshit because we are all about meritocracy, so the best candidate should get whatever the thing is. Sure. What planet are you living on, though? Are you living on a planet where that is doable, where that is possible? Because we don't. That's like because this is happening because the playing field isn't level, not because it's super level and these people just believe in injustice.
Right. It's an ideal. Meritocracy is an ideal.
Yeah,
It
which
doesn't
may or
work
may not
within
have
this
anything to
world.
fucking do with what's going on.
Yeah.
And I believe in this ideal of valuing and respecting other people's perspectives. I don't not believe in that, but it feels like it's got nothing to do with where we are. Like shit is on fire and we're talking about what this is not good. Abandoned.
Oh, but maybe that's not the point you wanted to say. It sounded like what you wanted to say was like, yeah, that's not where we are. Like, the world's in a really fucking messed up place right now, and we can't be like, how do you feel about that?
No. Because we're getting how people feel about that. That guy's perspective, this one guy's perspective, is that he gets to murder somebody. That's his perspective. I am not in a place where I can respect his perspective enough to validate it for 1 millisecond. Like, if that's the perspective that is making all the decisions, then I have a problem with perspective. Also, there's like this law, there's history. There's a long history of people in charge as much as possible, trying to get away with as much as possible and skewing things in favor of themselves and, like, that's been the history. So we're not waking up out of the coma into this incident, This is a long, long line. I find it interesting. A lot of people here say like on their dating profiles and shit, like apolitical is an option. And I always find that so fascinating. I've never met an apolitical person in my life. Where are all these people? Who are all these people? How are you managing to keep everything that happens in your life out of the political? It's like being like you're not into gravity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you're definitely like reaping the benefits of whatever political system or the deficits of whatever political system you're actually in.
You know that I'm sure I've told you this before, but there's some section of some book of Mindy Kaling's. I don't know if she has more than one, but that says that like being bad with names is not a thing.
You love this.
I love it. Yeah, like that because people talk about that as if it's a thing.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason people think it's a thing, because everyone like agrees. Yeah, but that's like that's not real. And apolitical is like that. It's like a thing that people talk about, but it doesn't exist.
Because you can't help but people.
Yeah, and if you choose not to get involved on certain levels with certain stuff, that is you choosing. That is a choice. Like in the same way that if you don't remember someone's name, you've met them 3 times, like you just didn't care enough.
You think it's not caring enough? Or is that privilege too?
They're like difficult to separate.
Could someone be like apolitical and deeply care about being apolitical?
I think apolitical means I'm an ostrich.
An ostrich, really?
It's like I'm just gonna pretend if I put my head here that no one can see my body. But it is, yes, it is sort of. I think privilege can result in it, but I don't think that's the only way to be an ostrich. Like you can be underprivileged and be an ostrich.
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine. I guess you could just go about your life ignoring any whiff of politics and never vote.
But if you can get away with that, that's already a sign of privilege. If you're able to just like live your life without having to interface with systemic racism, then
But that's a different thing.
no.
You don't have to engage with politics to have to deal with that. Or do
No,
you see
definitely
politics
not.
as
But
that?
politics, that is what politics is. Politics is everything that decides how we are going to do this.
So people are just like miscategorizing politics.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the people who think of politics as this faraway thing is, I think, the same. A lot of times, the same people who think that government is huge and out to get everyone, even though like it's ours. It's our thing. They work for these people. The only reason there is a politics is because there is a person. You can't. It's separating personal from politics is like it's like a. The only reason politics exists is because of what happens in people's personal lives.
Yeah.
Like that is actually what they're talking about.
bad government.
Then everyone wants their stimulus check.
There's something so like transparent about like big bad out there, you know?
What do you mean transparent?
Just really believing in some like outside force that's just out to get you.
They exist.
And thwarting you whatever term.
They exist. But they exist.
Oh, definitely they exist.
What do you mean transparent then?
Oh, I just mean like, oh, you like walk around life feeling like people are out to get you. But there's some evil empire.
There is an evil. There is though.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, to me, that's not like, they're not in some weird la la land.
No, they might not be. But it's still like a place to be. Do you know what I mean?
Believing that it's true doesn't necessarily mean you live every moment of your life from there.
No.
Like, I 100% believe that there's an evil empire.
Yeah?
Yes!
What's the evil empire to you?
Money and corruption! That's one of the major ones. Like, that's the reason nobody can fucking get a word in edgewise. That's like the one of the uppermost, chronologically speaking, things. But yeah, that's the reason that people are getting fed Oreos and dying. Because someone's making money.
Mm-hmm.
And because of their influence, because of the money, they're always going to be worth more than the hundreds of thousands of dead people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if giant corporations are not evil empires, I don't know what they are.
I don't know. I find there's like something very weird about the fact that they're like entities without being entities. It's faceless.
But they are entities.
And I'm sure that's part of it.
There are entities. But yes, you're right.
Like they're made up
faceless
of
is fine.
people. Yeah. But somehow they stop being people. Because it's a corporation. It's not Sam and Joe and Marge or whatever.
But there are very much people there making decisions on behalf of the corporation.
Yeah, for the corporation. Yeah.
And frankly, like, I'm terrified of the police. Not necessarily personally, but yeah. So to me, evil empire is really not that far off.
You know how it's like money is an idea? I mean, so are corporations.
Yeah, I mean, everything is.
Like, what even is Pepsi Cola at this point?
It's a bunch of rich people.
Yeah.
But that's like quantifiable. It's a bunch of rich people.
No, it's a bunch of rich people, but like, then it goes like, oh yeah, like our commitment is to the shareholders, and like,
Mhm.
right, we have to grow the company. What is the company? Like, what is it you're growing, and ultimately,
Money.
just money.
It's your income that you're growing.
Is it your income?
Yes!
Or is it like,
It's your income. The company makes more, you make more.
you think, so that's the only incentive?
Yes.
Okay.
As opposed to?
As opposed to, right, we're going to make this company the biggest, baddest thing that's ever been.
I mean, I'm sure there is that somewhere, but I don't like know how far away Nabisco is from like its startup spirit. Like I don't know if there were people being like, let's make something out of that. But if there were, it was a really long time.
There's like a black and white movie footage of like some
Yeah.
little market stall, some little old lady selling black and white cookies.
I call them. You want to know what? I'm gonna do the impression of that lady. How am I gonna do that? I really have to do. Yeah, like that's another like idea.
I just really love Oreos. And I just
You
really
want them to
want
be on the right side.
everyone. No. I'm just trying to think of like the altruistic Oreo executive.
Now, why are you trying to do that? I said that's so weirdly.
Why am I trying to do that?
Why are you desperately trying to ferret out an altruistic board member from fucking? What is this about?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just being contrarian. I don't know if it's like really just like needing to see the good in everyone. It's bullshit, by the way, that I'm like, yeah, everyone's a snowflake. And then most of the time I walk around being terrified of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where does that add up? I constantly think like everyone's gonna let me down and like terrorize me or be mean to me in some way. And then I'm like, yeah, everyone's really good in the center. What is that?
That's why I shrink from them.
Yeah, really. What is that?
That's funny.
I don't know. It feels like a bone that I can't let go of.
Hmm.
Of just giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, if there's a doubt. But like, it's like every situation is a doubt.
I mean, I literally wonder if it's as simple as, and we've kind of talked about this, like realizing your parents are limited human beings
Mm-hmm.
is kind of terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
who's in charge of you?
Mm-hmm.
How are they able to do anything?
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that the whole world is run by people like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really scary place to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's really scary. And like it's something heavier to hold. If you're gonna take that on, you have to like really be able to hold on to what makes it worthwhile.
What's the it?
Like living. If you're like, at least for me, I'm like, that's what the world is.
Imperfect human beings?
No, not just imperfect human beings. Like if you look at all the hell, if you just look at the game that most of us seem to be playing, which is apparently most of life is about making money for those corporations. Even if you don't work for them, you're making money to buy from them. Okay, so like most of your life is going to be about that. And then there's going to be like incredible injustices in the world for no reason, just for stupidity.
Stupidity is generous.
Or whatever word you want to insert there, which is a form of stupidity, I think, in addition to many other things. It's a raw deal. Like that's a raw deal. Getting born.
I get it. I happen to not think that right now, but
Okay.
I have felt it.
So how do you like carry it?
I don't think you can try to carry it. That sounds impossible.
Or I guess, okay, so carry's the wrong word. Like, how do you find like your own balance within it?
Not very well. But if I have energy and if I have a voice and if I have space, I try to use it. And I think it's important to have like manageable goals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I suppose you could be like, I'm gonna murder Nabisco. Like, I will end that company. That is certainly possible. But you have to just pick a way to contribute and do whatever you can, like anything else. And there's lots of good things as well. And that's why I said I don't feel like that right now, but I have and do feel like that sometimes. Um, and this is the reason I think people like believe in God and shit. One of the reasons.
Because that's how.
Because
Like-
there's gotta be
There's got to be a reason.
there's something has there has to be something. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons. I don't want to say that that's the reason. I don't think us fumbling for answers as a species is the only reason we have religions. You made it sound like that just now.
It's a tool, or it can't be.
That's why religion is a, what do you call it? A strength?
Yeah, that's
Also
what I was thinking. A signature strength.
signature strength. Yeah. Because you're like, it's cool. Someone's got this. It's not a you fault, but someone's got it. Also, if we got here, we can unget here. Meaning, like, we did this. It wasn't like a special superhuman. It's not like Superman did this. You know?
Yeah. Do you think it's harder to dismantle something than to build? Or not? Maybe dismantle something.
I don't know.
You know how, like, when you're editing, you know how when you're editing and you're, like, trying not to destroy what you've written, it's like a surgery, you know? It feels like we're trying to perform surgery on the world. It's really sticky in some situations.
I think it helps not to be precious. Like the way I usually handle stuff like that is to just like save it somewhere.
Right. It's
I'll be
there.
like, this is it before I mess with it.
Yeah.
And I will put it over here. So there's no fear of it dying
Mhm.
or disappearing from the world. And then like stop trying to protect it.
We can't do that here.
What do you mean?
We can't like
You mean
Dropbox this
you're talking about
version
fix
of the
the world?
world.
yeah.
Like, we can always go back.
I was mostly speaking just to the
No, I know.
to the one.
But I like it. I'm like, oh, is there a way to drop, like, okay, save it? It's
To me, I think you can use it.
great.
I think you can utilize that in terms of efforts, what you do. So you're like,
You can always go
okay,
back
let's do
to the way
this.
you did it before.
And let's do this.
That's
And
fair.
maybe it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you're like, but I loved that. I really thought it was going to work. I'm going to lay it to the side and try something else. Gotta come up with a new profession.
What?
Because I forgot how to act.
No, you didn't.
I think I did.
Maybe it just feels weird. It doesn't
Oh.
mean you forgot.
It definitely feels weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like Anchorman. I asked Amy, what should I do with my hands?
Your eyes are just really big
Yeah.
and all of it, right?
Don't worry, it's gonna be fine. I'll protect you. It's the same.
It might be the same.
Sometimes just like-
Yeah. Great. Well, I'm excited to see what it is.
Me too.
What is acting anyway?
I'm not the faintest. I haven't got the faintest idea. I always have a moment when I go see Amy where I'm like, isn't it weird how we're pretending that this is doable?
Really?
Yeah. Like I'm gonna do this scene. Yeah. You can't do a scene.
A friend of mine had to.
Shit, where's my book?
I think it's on the counter.
Okay.
She had to put herself on video for some. I don't know. Some,
Video?
like she had to do a self tape, but she's not an actress. For some social media thing. And she texted me and was like, "Oh my god, how the fuck do you do this?"
What?
She got like so self-conscious, so stressed about all of it, so stressed about like watching herself on tape and like her dog barking and the light in the room and what she had to wear and saying the right thing and having to do like several takes.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I guess it does require some things.
I don't know. That sounds like what I do.
Right.
All those things.
No, I know. I was like, oh yeah, I guess like yeah, you do have to do all those things.
What are you saying, that you newly appreciate actors, such as yourself?
It was like, oh right, I do deal with all that. Like,
It's easy to get myopic about your competencies
yeah,
or
and
like
that's part of it.
areas of work.
Yeah, exactly. Like, right. All of those things, like even if we're just like talking about getting over seeing yourself on camera.
Yeah.
Like
And
getting
work.
over being self-conscious in front of a camera or whatever it is. Like, yeah, it's a huge deal.
But like I haven't figured it out. So that's what I mean. Like obviously I'm not going to be doing a scene.
There's a difference between like figuring it out and like being like
I don't know. We'll see what happens. Imagine.
turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off.
And you're like, like paralyzing
Yeah.
stage fright in your own self tape
Like
set up.
literally nothing is threatening in that moment.
Yeah, nothing.
There's a dog barking.
Woo! Oh my.
Learning lines.
How do you remember all those?
How do you remember all those lines? And you say them all in the right order too?
What do you do? What do you do?
I really just want to go into, you know what? I think from now on, whenever someone asks me about like, yeah, there's a lot of lines to learn. Like, I'll just like really go into the line learning aspect of
You should, David Boreanaz.
it. Like, I'll be
Just
like,
David Boreanaz.
yeah, you know, the reason I became an actor was because I figured out I had a pretty decent memory. One day, someone was like, "You remembered all that? You should be an actor." And I was like, "Yeah, should."
It's probably what happened.
Kind of is.
No, you didn't remember what it was.
It kind of is what happened, actually.
To you?
Grade 6.
Someone was like, you, look at the memory on you.
There was a kid that I had a crush on, and I used to help him cheat. Like, I helped him with his work. And he's like, "You have such a good memory.
wonder.
You should become an actor."
You
I
never
was like-
sacrificed an ideal since. Really?
Kind of.
That's funny.
And so, like, in my elementary school yearbook, it says, "What am I going to be when I grow up? An actor."
Because Steven said.
Sam.
Because Sam said. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cute. And then were you like, and was he like, oh, that was quick?
No. And I was like, "Yes, I'm going to be an actor." Pretty much. No, I don't know if I did anything about it. I just wrote it in my yearbook. The seed was planted. Yeah, I think that's all I'm just gonna talk about lines from now on.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's
gonna be
best to
like,
stick to the weather.
yeah, so you know that in this project, I remember I had to learn this line. It was really hard.
Are you gonna have to remember them? I wish I could remember the hardest. One of them was not that long ago. One of the hardest things I've ever had to remember was not
The
that
army
long.
thing? Or
The-
no, was
the,
that
st-
not?
the numbers?
No, not the thing you filmed. But actually, when you were working on that and you came home and you had to do a self tape, and there was like this one scene that it was just like, what was that thing? Or no, maybe you were an astronaut.
I remember the day
You
you're
wasn't
talking
an
about.
astronaut.
I remember the day you're talking about, but I don't remember the line.
Yeah, I don't. The numbers you think was the hardest?
No, I think that the Seth MacFarlane thing,
The
the Orville.
oh God,
I
that was something.
think that might have been the worst, but maybe it's just the most recent worst.
That was something.
Like I might not be remembering all the ones that were worse. The Orville. I probably lost like half a pound looking on those sides.
You had them down.
You know, I did them like without flaw in the actual thing. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
I almost always am like, what? Even for non-difficult things. And then when I make myself really insecure about like, am I going to remember it? Am I not going to remember it? Then I especially like get in my head about it, and then I don't.
Right, of course.
Yeah, but this time I was like, there's no Murphy and there's no law.
And then the casting person was like, didn't she say that? She's like, oh,
Yeah, she was
you
like,
remembered
it
everything.
sounds like you're talking and it makes sense.
I wonder what she had seen that day.
Me too.
Oh gosh.
She was like the most unlikely reader for that. She was a very unlikely reader for that. War and Peace.
What did we read yesterday?
Pierre
Pierre. Oh, yeah.
in his new life.
Right, Pierre in his new life.
In the zone.
Nothing has really changed, but everything has changed.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's just appreciating people exactly as they are. And suddenly people are like, I don't know why, but I like myself more when I'm around him.
He's in flow. He's just in flow state, man.
Yeah.
There's no brake lights for miles. I want to know what you thought about the Daryl Hammond thing.
Oh my God. But do you want to talk about War and Peace or that?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll come up.
Maybe. Never can tell.
Right. The other thing with Pierre is suddenly he can make decisions.
Oh, he knows the answer to everything. His spleen filled out.
Seriously. Or
His spleen center just like went online.
yeah.
It was like, what?
He's like, I don't know why, I just know which causes to give money to and which not to.
Yeah.
I know what to do.
And he can say no really easily suddenly.
Yeah.
Which seems like a superpower.
For him.
For lots of people.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like one of the things with that is even though it makes no money sense, he decided to clean up his wife's debts.
Clear his wife's debts.
And rebuild in Moscow.
And rebuild in Moscow. We spent a lot of time talking about how everybody went back to Moscow.
Right.
And how that was confusing to some people. Didn't seem confusing to either of the people reading it here.
There was an analogy about ants.
Yeah. Ants. Talking about them like they were headless dongles, which they aren't.
You know when you see a group of ants and you think, what are these ants doing?
Like they're running around without a clue. They have no sense of urgency or they have urgency, but to what? I'm just gonna assume it's nothing.
Ants. When you're out judging ants.
Yeah. When you think they're so stupid. Judging ants.
Yeah. In
like
the same way. In the same way. You could look at everyone returning to Moscow like that.
What the shit are you guys doing?
But actually, there was sense to it.
What was the sense?
That there's some greater purpose.
They
But
just
no
got
one
sucked
really
back
know-
in there.
No one really can like say, but everyone is pulled by.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rostopchin's gonna make some broadsheets.
He is. He's gonna shoot some broads.
Rostopchin, I don't like him.
You don't?
I think he's the first person I don't like.
Really?
First.
I thought he was quite funny.
Really?
Not like I was laughing at him.
Oh. So you're like,
Yeah, he's a fucking dunce.
oh, I'm just thinking of
Oh,
the last time we saw him, he
I forgot about
like
that.
sacrificed a
Yeah, no, I don't like him.
newspaper man who would
A postal worker.
postal worker, a postman,
A fucking
a
postman.
postman Pat.
Yeah. It was bullshit.
And afterwards, we're just like, well, it needed to be done. It's not my fault. Yeah, he blamed the burning of the loss of Moscow on that guy.
Yeah. And
That's-
probably on Kutuzov as well.
That's bizarre.
Why?
You think about that for 2 seconds and you'll be like, it's probably not that person.
Yeah, but that's the problem is you're thinking. That's where you went astray. The reason it worked is because the mob doesn't think. Nobody thinks. There's no thinking. They just feel. So he's like, this guy. And they're like zombies. And they just eat him.
Much. Him and the tall lad.
Yeah. Also, everybody's responsible for everything. So maybe the postal worker was responsible for the fall of Moscow.
Maybe, actually.
Who's to say?
Oh,
As you.
excellent point.
Oh, excellent.
Like, suddenly I'm just imagining this is like an English Lit 101 and you raise your hand and you're like, but if everyone's responsible for everything, then yeah. And the professor
is like,
someone's been paying attention. You up
That's
to
all.
the front of the class.
that's all I ever did was pay attention in class. I don't think I did anything else. That was my like school hack.
You yeah, you told me this, but you paid attention. Whereas most people don't.
I was like, they tell you everything. They tell you everything that they're gonna care that they care about.
Yeah.
So then you just have to, when you like in studying or whatever, you just have to be like, come on, they really care about this part.
Yeah, they're really trying to drive this home. So
Yeah.
just repeat.
Yeah, people used to be like, what's gonna be on the test? And I was like, what? Why are you? They already told us everything was gonna be on the test. You just have to profile your teacher.
Mm. What do you mean? Like what?
Racially. I don't know what that even means. You just have to like know what's important to them.
To that person? Like, what would that person?
Yeah, like
What does that
I
person
was
really
present
want you
in
to talk about.
kind of.
Mm.
I was like present in class,
Mhm.
and I think part of that was like what matters to these people.
Mm. Yeah, that's true.
So we are in the never-ending book 15. Oh, we're on 15, book 15, chapter
We are.
15.
Yeah, I think we covered it.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Chapter 15.
At the end of January, are we in 1813 now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Happy New Year!
At the end of January, Pierre went to Moscow and stayed in an annex of his house, which had not been burned. He called on Count Rostopchin and on some acquaintances who were back in Moscow, and he intended to leave for Petersburg 2 days later. Everybody was celebrating the victory. Everything was bubbling with life in the ruined but reviving city. Everyone was pleased to see Pierre, everyone wished to meet him, and everyone questioned him about what he had seen. Pierre felt particularly well disposed toward them all, but was now instinctively on his guard for fear of binding himself in any way. To all questions put to him, whether important or quite trifling, such as where would he live? Was he going to rebuild? When was he going to Petersburg? And would he mind taking a parcel for someone? He replied, yes, perhaps, or I think so, and so on.
He had heard that the Rostovs were at Kostroma, but the thought of Natasha seldom occurred to him. If it did, it was only as a pleasant memory of the distant past. He felt himself not only free from social obligations, but also from that feeling which, it seemed to him, he had aroused in himself.
On the third day after his arrival, he heard from the Drubetskoys that Princess Mary was in Moscow. The death, sufferings, and last days of Prince Andrew had often occupied Pierre's thoughts, and now recurred to him with fresh vividness. Having heard at dinner that Princess Mary was in Moscow and living in her house, which had not been burned, in Vodvizhenka Street, he drove that same evening to see her.
On his way to the house, Pierre kept thinking of Prince Andrew, of their friendship, of his various meetings with him, and especially of the last one at Borodino. Oh, that one was not a good one. He showed up and was like, "Hey, buddy," and Andrew was like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, right. Yeah,
Because he was just in a different
I was
place.
just like, I don't want to see you or talk to you right now.
He was like, "Just check out my hat."
Oh, right. Is it possible that he died in the bitter frame of mind he was then in? Is it possible that the meaning of life was not disclosed to him before he died? Thought Pierre. He recalled Karasyov and his death and involuntarily began to compare these two men, so different and yet so similar in that they had both lived and both died, and in the love he felt for both of them.
Pierre drove up to the house of the old prince in a most serious mood. The house had escaped the fire. It showed signs of damage, but its general aspect was unchanged. The old footman, who met Pierre with a stern face as if wishing to make the visitor feel that the absence of the old prince had not disturbed the order of things in the house, informed him that the princess had gone to her own apartments and that she received on Sundays.
Announce me. Perhaps she will see me, said Pierre.
Yes, sir, said the man. Please step into the portrait gallery.
A few minutes later, the footman returned with Desal, who brought word from the princess that she would be very glad to see Pierre if he would excuse her want of ceremony and come upstairs to her apartment.
In a rather low room, lit by one candle, sat the princess, and with her another person dressed in black. Pierre remembered that the princess always had lady companions, but who they were and what they were like he never knew or remembered. This one must be one of her companions, he thought, glancing at the lady in the black dress.
The princess rose quickly to meet him and held out her hand.
So he's just not going to realize
What do you mean?
that he's probably Natasha.
Oh, right. Like the lady in the black dress.
Yeah. Yes, she said. Yes to what?
Maybe she's so different.
Looking at his altered face after he had kissed her hand. So this is how we meet again. He spoke of you even at the very last, she went on, turning her eyes from Pierre to her companion with a shyness that surprised him for an instant.
I was so glad to hear of your safety. It was the first piece of good news we had received for a long time.
Again the princess glanced round at her companion with even more uneasiness in her manner and was about to add something, but Pierre interrupted her.
Just imagine, I knew nothing about him, said he. I thought he had been killed. All I know, I heard it secondhand from others. I only know that he fell in with the Rostovs. What a strange coincidence.
Pierre spoke rapidly and with animation. He glanced once at the companion's face, saw her attentive and kindly gaze fixed on him, and, as often happens when one is talking, felt somehow that this companion in the black dress was a good, kind, excellent creature, who would not hinder his conversing freely with Princess Mary.
But when he mentioned the Rostovs, Princess Mary's face expressed still greater embarrassment. She again glanced rapidly from Pierre's face to that of the lady in the black dress and said, Do you really not recognize her?
Pierre looked again at the companion's pale, delicate face with its black eyes and peculiar mouth, and something near to him, long forgotten and more than sweet, looked at him from those attentive eyes.
But no, it can't be, he thought. This stern, thin, pale face that looks so much older. It cannot be she. It merely reminds me of her. But at that moment, Princess Mary said, Natasha, and with difficulty, effort, and stress, like the opening of a door grown rusty on its hinges, a smile appeared on the face with the attentive eyes, and from that opening door came a breath of fragrance which suffused Pierre with a happiness he had long forgotten, and of which he had not even been thinking, especially at that moment. It suffused him, seized him, and enveloped him completely. When she smiled, doubt was no longer possible. It was Natasha, and he loved her.
At that moment, Pierre involuntarily betrayed to her, to Princess Mary, and above all to himself, a secret which he himself had been unaware. He flushed joyfully, yet with painful distress. He tried to hide his agitation, but the more he tried to hide it, the more clearer than any words could have done, did he betray to himself, to her, and to Princess Mary that he loved her.
No, it's only the unexpectedness of it, thought Pierre. But as soon as he tried to continue the conversation he had begun with Princess Mary, he again glanced at Natasha, and a still deeper flush suffused his face, and a still stronger agitation of mingled joy and fear seized his soul. He became confused in his speech and stopped in the middle of what he was saying.
Pierre had failed to notice Natasha because he did not at all expect to see her there, but he had failed to recognize her.
He failed because he did not. What?
But
he had failed.
But
Wait, maybe this is a keep going thing.
Yeah. But he had failed to recognize her because the change in her since he last saw her was immense. Nope.
Shouldn't that be an and, not a but?
Okay. She had grown thin and pale, but that was not what made her unrecognizable. She was unrecognizable at the moment he entered because on that face whose eyes had always shone with a suppressed smile of the joy of life, now when he first entered and glanced at her, there was not the least shadow of a smile. Only her eyes were kindly attentive and sadly interrogative.
Pierre's confusion was not reflected by any confusion on Natasha's part.
Kindly interrogative. I want to see that.
Wait, her eyes were kindly and sad. That's hard.
I'm trying to do it.
Oh, that's good.
Kindly interrogative is very funny.
Yeah, like.
You're kind of moving back and forth
I know.
between like.
No, you gotta do it both. Fine. Fine. Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Did we finish that?
No.
Oh, Pierre's confusion was not reflected by any confusion on Natasha's part, but only by the pleasure that just perceptibly lit up her whole face.
So, can
Why
you make
did-
a projection?
Did they make babies?
Yeah. What's gonna happen?
I don't know. I don't know if she feels that way.
Too soon.
I don't know if she feels that way.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure. Why did she just sit in the corner?
What do you mean?
Like, if Pierre came in,
She wasn't sitting in the corner.
no, I know she wasn't like,
He just like overlooked her.
wouldn't you be like, Pierre?
I think it probably took Mary a minute to realize that he wasn't going to recognize her.
Okay.
Because if you just assume that he knows both the people in the room, you're not going to be introducing them.
Yeah. I wasn't saying she would introduce them. I'm saying Natasha seems like she has historically up to this point been someone who starts things.
Oh, cannot you see she has changed?
She has changed. She is thin now.
She's thin and she doesn't smile and she doesn't start stuff. She just stands there. Kindly interrogating. Chapter 16. She has come to stay with me, said Princess Mary. The Count and Countess will be here in a few days. The Countess is in a dreadful state, but it was necessary for Natasha herself to see a doctor. They insisted on her coming with me.
Yes, is there a family free from sorrow now? Said Pierre, addressing Natasha. You know what happened the very day you were rescued. I saw him. What a delightful boy he was.
Natasha looked at him. and by way of answer to his words, her eyes widened and lit up.
What can one say or think of as a consolation, said Pierre. Nothing. Why had such a splendid boy, so full of life, to die?
Yes, in these days it would be hard to live without faith, remarked Princess Mary.
Yes, yes, that is really true, Pierre hastily interrupted her.
Why is it true? Natasha asked, looking attentively into Pierre's eyes.
How can you ask why? Said Princess Mary. The thought alone of what awaits.
Natasha, without waiting for Princess Mary to finish, again looked inquiringly at Pierre.
And because, Pierre continued, only one who believes that there is a God ruling us can bear a loss such as hers and yours.
Natasha had already opened her mouth to speak, but suddenly stopped. Pierre hurriedly turned away from her and again addressed Princess Mary, asking about his friend's lost days.
Pierre's confusion had now almost vanished, but at the same time he felt that his freedom had also completely gone. He felt that there was now a judge of his every word and action, whose judgment mattered more to him than that of all the rest of the world. As he spoke now, he was considering what impression his words would make on Natasha. He did not purposely say things to please her, but whatever he was saying, he regarded from her standpoint.
Princess Mary, reluctantly, as is usual in such cases, began telling of the condition in which she had found Prince Andrew. But Pierre's face quivering with emotion, his questions, and his eager, restless expression gradually compelled her to go into detail which she feared to recall for her own sake.
Yes, yes, and so? Pierre kept saying as he leaned toward her with his whole body and eagerly listened to her story. Yes, yes, so he grew tranquil and softened. With all his soul, he had always sought one thing, to be perfectly good, so he could not be afraid of death. The faults he had, if he had any, were not of his making. So he did soften. What a happy thing that he saw you again, he added, suddenly turning to Natasha and looking at her with eyes full of tears.
Natasha's face twitched. She frowned and lowered her eyes for a moment. She hesitated for an instant whether to speak or not.
Yes, that was happiness, she then said in her quiet voice with its deep chest notes. For me, it certainly was happiness. She paused, and he said he was wishing for it at the very moment I entered the room.
Natasha's voice broke. She blushed. Do you want to blush? She blushed, pressed her clasped hands on her knees, and then, controlling herself with an evident effort, lifted her head and began to speak rapidly.
We knew nothing of it when we started from Moscow. I did not dare to ask about him. Then suddenly Sonia told me he was traveling with us. I had no idea and could not imagine what state he was in. All I wanted was to see him and be with him, she said, trembling and breathing quickly.
Not letting them interrupt her, she went on to tell what she had never yet mentioned to anyone, all she had lived through during those 3 weeks of their journey in life at Yaroslavl.
Pierre listened to her with lips parted and eyes fixed upon her full of tears.
Well, as he listened, he did not think of Prince Andrew, nor of death, nor of what she was telling. He listened to her and felt only pity for her, for what she was suffering now while she was speaking.
Princess Mary, frowning in her effort to hold back her tears, sat beside Natasha and heard for the first time the story of those last days of her brothers and Natasha's love.
Evidently, Natasha needed to tell that painful yet joyful tale.
She spoke, mingling most trifling details with the intimate secrets of her soul, and it seemed as if she could never finish.
Several times our books have diverged greatly.
Is it just like all one?
No, but they're breaking up in different places.
Oh man, okay.
Several times she repeated the same thing twice.
We'll figure it out.
DeSalle's voice was heard outside the door, asking whether little Nicholas might come in to say goodnight.
Well, that's all. Everything, said Natasha.
She got up quickly just as Nicholas entered, almost ran to the door, which was hidden by curtains, struck her head against it, and rushed from the room with a moan either of pain or sorrow. Jesus. She ran into the door?
I guess so, yeah.
She was like, I gotta go! And just like, didn't realize that she had
yeah, because it had a curtain. I don't know. Pierre gazed at the door through which she had disappeared and did not understand why he suddenly felt all alone in the world.
Princess Mary roused him from his abstraction by drawing his attention to her nephew, who had entered the room. Oh, God, poor Nicholas again fighting for attention and acknowledgement. He's like, and Mary's like, this is my nephew. My nephew?
At that moment of emotional tenderness, young Nicholas's face, which resembled his father's, affected Pierre so much that when he had kissed the boy, he got up quickly, took out his handkerchief, and went to the window.
He wished to take leave of Princess Mary, but she would not let him go.
No, Natasha and I sometimes don't go to sleep till after 2, so please don't go. I will order supper. Go downstairs. We will come immediately.
Before Pierre left the room, Princess Mary told him, this is the first time she has talked to him like that.
Because you just bring out these things in people.
Yes.
Hmm.
Pierre's nirvana is gone.
Yeah, you think so? Because now we want something
He certainly
again.
thinks so.
Now we want something again.
Of course it is. Of course it's. Ah!
But it kind of has to be.
Yeah.
So, like, what?
Yeah.
He just lives like that for the rest of his days? He's like 25.
He's not 25.
I think he's 25.
First of all, life expectancy is like 40.
That's true, okay.
40 is the new 100. I mean, yeah. Is that what I meant?
100 is the new 40? No.
Well, it was confusing because it's a back to the future. It's like
Yeah.
directionally
Yeah. It's confusing.
confusing. But I meant their 40 is our 100.
Mhm.
So 40 is the new 100 for us right now here. Well,
Yes.
reading the book.
Yes.
But not like in our world at large.
Yeah.
Okay. I have found myself a couple of times been sad about the possibility that this might be one of my lost lives.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
It's tough.
I don't know if it is or not, but
It's tough being so enlightened.
no,
No.
no, I mean like you get bounced afterwards.
Yeah, where do you go to?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe you become a spirit guide.
I hope it's not too lame, people.
Imagine you're like, I got stuck with you. Jesus.
Like part of me was like, he told me this once in the last one.
Uh-huh.
He was like, I'm not saying this is the last one. And I was like, that's strangely reassuring considering. No, I mean like, he means that to be reassuring, but I kind of don't care.
Uh-huh.
But then now I do. I was like, wait, how many are there left though?
Right.
I could ask him. But I don't know.
Does it change anything? That's really funny. I mean, is that any different than like someone who doesn't believe in reincarnation being like, oh, right, I die at the end of this?
Wait, what? No, it's just longer.
It's longer?
Like somebody who doesn't believe in reincarnation is gonna die in the next soon
Mm-hmm.
in the cosmic sense.
Right.
But someone who does buy into the reincarnation thing is still mourning death, but it's not this death.
Yeah.
It's the last death.
Mhm.
Like suddenly I was like, wait, you know how when little kids are in a rush to grow up?
Yeah. And then
suddenly you're like, oh shit, now I want to be small.
Right.
So I was like, I'm 9 million years. Like there was a part of me that was like, oh, I got to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of days later, I was like, wait, I'm almost done.
Yeah. All those like juicy lessons,
I know, I'm like really into them.
those trials and tribulations.
All the
You
stuff.
graduated. You got it.
Yeah.
You got it good.
Well, not yet, but at some point.
Soon.
What's the it? It's probably great.
What else? What else do you think you have to learn?
I mean, I don't know that I would know.
Right.
You know. Yeah, I don't know that I would know. Because if I did, then I'd know. Maybe.
Because you think everything you learned in this life, like you got it. So in the next life,
Depends
you
on
just
what I do.
aren't gonna have to deal with that.
Depends on how I do. That's
Like it's still going.
Yeah.
It's not done.
Yeah, like if
necessarily.
I
You could backslide?
suddenly, oh yeah, no, not to like a previous life.
No, not a previous life, but like a previous thing in this life.
Yeah, because right now I could decide to just get a lifetime supply of gummies and never leave my room.
Mm.
I could do that. And then what will I learn? Not that much. Oh, maybe. I don't know. No, but probably like not that much.
Okay.
So then I will have wasted my life.
Mm.
Everybody else. Yeah, it'll be like wasted time. But maybe that, like, I'm sure that's part of.
You better not put the brakes on.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like how we've been doing in book 25.
Yeah, you better not be like, oh, let's order donuts then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if we're only gonna live once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought about that more in terms of like, oh, so I can use the rest of my this one to be a drug addict. And I was like, how did you just want to be a drug addict from nowhere?
Yeah.
Like that was not a thing I wanted yesterday. Like,
Right.
yeah. But I was like, I can waste my life. Awesome. Obviously, I'm not going to do that.
You can't.
I know, but I'm probably not going to.
You can't. I'm just saying, like, oh yeah, there's a like, no, I don't want to be great.
Yeah, because then what?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you're done fixing things?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you get control from fixing things, then it's like when you're done fixing things, like you're done. Maybe I get to make no choices ever again. Ever. Maybe I get to control nothing ever again.
Maybe you do know how to act.
What do you mean?
Maybe you do remember how to act.
What?
Maybe you do. And it's fun to be
Oh.
like, and it's fun to be like, how do I do them?
That's what you
That's
mean.
what you sound like, but yeah.
That's what you mean. Yeah. I knew there was a missing meaning that I was missing. Because I was like, wait. I mean, it'll probably come out looking a lot like me acting. When we do it.
What's the difference?
I'm not sure. It's just like what I think is happening. Actually, I don't know if I've ever thought I was acting. Acting is always a disappointment. Because so rarely does it approach truth. And truth is so obviously true. So it's like being in a lab trying to make water. But you're like, there's water everywhere.
It's like being in a lab and trying to make shiny water.
Why shiny water?
Or at least like you're trying to make water, but the thing that you're doing, like the whole construct of it.
Meanwhile, it's probably really easy to make water. Maybe not. I don't know. Chemistry.
Like an episode of television is not necessarily is not real life.
Correct.
And is not really trying to imitate perfectly real life.
Correct. And if you were doing it, it wouldn't be real.
Yeah. So it's like you want to get as close to the truth as possible while still making it like dramatic.
The truth is dramatic as well. Obviously not.
I don't know. I don't know if it is. It can be framed as dramatic. I don't know if it actually is.
Anybody watching this is like,
I don't-
it's not.
Truth is not dramatic. Yeah. Why did you? Acting is not satisfying.
No, it's
Or it's
satisfying to try and get
disappointing.
something.
It's disappointing.
That you can never get. Yeah. It's always like a.
Yeah.
That being said, I think I've like done a pretty decent job in the last couple of years of like putting my head down and doing it anyway, despite that feeling.
Yeah. I think there's something to like letting it be something else.
I've thought about this before, actually.
Mhm.
I've been like, should I just accept that this is acting and act like people act when they're acting?
Yeah, you know. You just accept that it's a craft. Like it's like making a cabinet.
So much cooler. Because then I can put stuff in it. And then when I'm done, I can make it planter by drilling holes in the bottom.
So the same is the same.
Yeah, we'll see.
And you do that anyway.
Do which?
Everything that I'm saying.
I feel like I forgot.
Okay. Chapter 17.
Yeah.
Pierre was shown into the large, brightly lit dining room. A few minutes later, he heard footsteps, and Princess Mary entered with Natasha. Natasha was calm, though a severe and grave expression had again settled on her face. They all three of them now experienced the feeling of awkwardness which usually follows after a serious and heartfelt talk. It is impossible to go back to the same conversation. Trifles is awkward, and yet the desire to speak is there, and silence seems like affectation. They went silently to table. The footmen drew back the chairs and pushed them up again. Pierre unfolded his cold table napkin and, resolving to break the silence, looked at Natasha and at Princess Mary. They had evidently both formed the same resolution. The eyes of both shone with satisfaction, and a confession that besides sorrow, life also has joy.
Do you take vodka, Count? Asked Princess Mary, and those words suddenly banished the shadows of the past. Now tell us about yourself, said she. One hears such improbable wonders about you.
Yes, replied Pierre, with a smile of mild irony now habitual to him. They even tell me wonders of myself I never dreamed of. Mary Abramovna invited me to her house and kept telling me what had happened or ought to have happened to me. Stepanich also instructed me how I ought to tell of my experiences. In general, I have noticed that it is very easy to be an interesting man. I am an interesting man now. People invite me out and tell me all about myself.
Anastasia smiled and was on the point of speaking.
We have been told, Princess Mary interrupted her, that you lost 2 millions in Moscow. Is that true?
But I am 3 times as rich as before, returned Pierre.
Though the position was now altered by his decision to pay his wife's debts and to rebuild his houses, Pierre still maintained that he had become 3 times as rich as before.
What I have suddenly gained is freedom, he began seriously, but did not continue, noticing that this theme was too egotistic.
And are you building?
Yes, Savelich says I must.
Tell me, you did not know of the Countess's death when you decided to remain in Moscow, asked Princess Mary, and immediately blushed. noticing that her question, following his mention of freedom, ascribed to his words a meaning he had perhaps not intended.
No, answered Pierre, evidently not considering awkward the meaning Princess Mary had given to his words. I heard of it in Orel, and you cannot imagine how it shocked me. We were not an exemplary couple, he added, quickly, glancing at Natasha and noticing on her face curiosity as to how he would speak of his wife. But her death shocked me terribly. When two people quarrel, they are always both in fault, and one's own guilt suddenly becomes terribly serious when the other is no longer alive. And then such a death, without friends and without consolation. I am very, very sorry for her, he concluded, and was pleased to notice a look of glad approval on Natasha's face.
Yes, and so you are once more an eligible bachelor, said Princess Mary.
Pierre suddenly flushed crimson and for a long time tried not to look at Natasha. When he ventured to glance her way again, her face was cold, stern, he fancied even contemptuous.
And did you really see and speak to Napoleon, as we have been told, said Princess Mary?
Pierre laughed.
No, not once. Everybody seems to imagine that being taken prisoner means being Napoleon's guest. Not only did I never see him, but I heard nothing about him. I was in much lower company.
Supper was over, and Pierre, who at first declined to speak about his captivity, was gradually led on to do so.
But it's true that you remained in Moscow to kill Napoleon, Natasha asked with a slight smile. I guessed it then when we met at the Sukharov Tower. Do you remember?
Pierre admitted that it was true, and from that was gradually led by Princess Mary's questions, and especially by Natasha's, into giving a detailed account of his adventures.
At first he spoke with the amused and mild irony now customary with him toward everybody, and especially toward himself. But when he came to describe the horrors and sufferings he had witnessed, he was unconsciously carried away, and began speaking with the suppressed emotion of a man re-experiencing in recollection strong impressions he has lived through.
Princess Mary, with a gentle smile, looked now at Pierre and now at Natasha. In the whole narrative, she saw only Pierre and his goodness. Natasha, leaning on her elbow, the expression on her face constantly changing with the narrative, watched Pierre with an attention that never wandered, evidently herself experiencing all that he had described. Not only her look, but her exclamations and the brief questions she put showed Pierre that she understood just what he wished to convey. It was clear that she understood not only what he said, but also what he wished to, but could not, express in words. The account Pierre gave of the incident with the child and the woman for protecting whom he was arrested was this. It was an awful sight. Children abandoned, some in the flames. One was snatched out before my eyes, and there were women who had their things snatched up and their earrings torn out. He flushed and grew confused. Then a patrol arrived, and all the men, all those who were not looting, that is, were arrested, and I among them.
I'm sure you're not telling us everything. I'm sure you did something, said Natasha, and pausing added, something fine?
Pierre continued. When he spoke of the execution, he wanted to pass over the horrible details, but Natasha insisted that he should not omit anything.
Pierre began to tell about Karatia, but paused. By this time, he had risen from the table and was pacing the room. Natasha followed him with her eyes. Then he added,
No, you can't understand what I learned from that illiterate man, that simple fellow.
Yes, go on, said Natasha. Where is he?
They killed him almost before my eyes.
And Pierre, his voice trembling continually, went on to tell of the last days of the retreat, of Karatiev's illness and his death.
He told of his adventures as he had never yet recalled them. He now, as it were, saw a new meaning in all he had gone through. Now that he was telling it all to Natasha, he experienced that pleasure which a man has when women listen to him. Not clever women who, when listening, either try to remember what they hear to enrich their minds, fuck you, and when opportunity offers to retell it, fuck you, or who wish to adopt it to some thought of their own and promptly contribute their own clever comments prepared in their little mental workshop. But the pleasure given by real women, gifted with a capacity to select and absorb the very best a man shows of himself. Ah, yes, the highest kind of woman. Natasha, without knowing it, was all attention. Sorry?
What?
Did you say something?
It's great.
Were you gonna?
No.
Okay.
Yes, Tolstoy. You know those women. Those women who try to learn things when you speak. Those women.
They're just stealing it and sneaking it away in their little mental workshop. A little mental. That's the rudest thing I've ever heard in my life. Natasha, without knowing It was all attention. She did not lose a word. No single quiver in Pierre's voice, no look, no twitch of a muscle in his face, nor a single gesture. She caught the unfinished word in its flight and took it straight into her open heart, divining the secret meaning of all Pierre's mental travail.
Princess Mary understood his story and sympathized with him, but she now saw something else that absorbed all her attention. She saw the possibility of love and happiness between Natasha and Pierre,
Oh shit.
and the first thought of this filled her heart with gladness.
It was 3 o'clock in the morning. The footmen came in with sad and stern faces to change the candles, but no one noticed them. Cool. They're like, I need to be in bed.
Yeah, they're like, Pierre finished his story. Natasha continued to look at him intently with bright, attentive, and animated eyes, as if trying to understand something more which he had perhaps left untold. Pierre, in shamefaced and happy confusion, glanced occasionally at her, and tried to think what to say next to introduce a fresh subject. Princess Mary was silent. It occurred to none of them that it was 3 o'clock and time to go to bed.
People speak of misfortunes and sufferings, remarked Pierre, but if at this moment I were asked, would you rather be what you were before you were taken prisoner or go through all this again, then for heaven's sake let me again have captivity and horseflesh. We imagine that when we are thrown out of our usual ruts, all is lost, but it is only then that what is new and good begins. While there is life, there is happiness. There is much, much before us. I say this to you, he added, turning to Natasha.
Yes, yes, she said, answering something quite different. I too should wish nothing but to relive it all from the beginning.
Pierre looked intently at her.
Yes, and nothing more, said Natasha.
It's not true. Not true, cried Pierre. I am not to blame for being alive and wishing to live. Nor you either.
Hmm? Where did you get there?
Yes, and nothing more.
Yes, and nothing more? Okay. Suddenly, Natasha bent her head, covered her face with her hands, and began to cry.
What is it, Natasha? Asked Princess Mary.
Nothing, nothing. She smiled at Pierre through her tears. Good night. It is time for bed.
Pierre rose and took his leave.
Princess Mary and Natasha met as usual in the bedroom. They talked of what Pierre had told them. Princess Mary did not express her opinion of Pierre, nor did Natasha speak of him.
Well, good night, Mary, said Natasha. Do you know, I'm often afraid that by not speaking of him, she meant Prince Andrew, for fear of not doing justice to our feelings, we forget him.
Princess Mary sighed deeply, and thereby acknowledged the justice of Natasha's remark, but did not express agreement in words.
It's possible to forget, said she.
It did me so much good to tell all about it today. It was hard and painful, but good, very good, said Natasha. I'm sure he really loved him. That is why I told him. Was it all right, she added, suddenly blushing.
To tell Pierre? Oh, yes, what a splendid man he is, said Princess Mary.
Do you know, Mary, Natasha suddenly said with a mischievous smile, such as Princess Mary had not seen on her face for a long time. He has somehow grown so clean, smooth, and fresh, as if he had just come out of a Russian bath. Do you understand? Out of a moral bath. Isn't it true?
Yes, replied Princess Mary. He has greatly improved.
With a short coat and his hair cropped, just as if he had come straight from the bath. Papa used to.
I understand why he, Prince Andrew, liked no one so much as him, said Princess Mary.
Yes.
I thought they were going to say why he spent so much time in the bath at the spas.
Oh, yeah.
I understand why he.
Oh, he had to go away.
Yeah.
Yes, and yet he is quite different. They say men are friends when they are quite different. That must be true. Really, he is quite unlike him in everything.
Yes, but he is wonderful.
Well, good night, said Natasha.
And the same mischievous smile lingered for a long time on her face as if it had been forgotten there.
Forgot my smile.
Oh, it's still on.
I was thinking of you, Sean.
Oh, forgot!
Yeah. Okay, you want on there?
Yeah, so this is going to happen.
I guess so. There's going to be a marriage ending. No. Now did I just curse myself?
The book's written.
I changed it.
Curse yourself? Wait,
Cursed myself.
you just said curse myself.
Yeah.
How would you have been cursed by?
because I don't get my marriage ending. It's not about the book. It's about
We can arrange a marriage somehow
maybe,
if you
yeah,
want that.
maybe you'll read ahead, and if it's upsetting, you can rewrite it
Okay.
and write a better ending for me. Okay, great. Thanks.
It's like in rom-com over here. Mm,
Speaking of, I'm listening to perhaps the silliest book.
really? That seems healthy.
It's good, but it's like it's called Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Okay.
It's from my book club,
Okay.
and it's literally about like the what's it called? The first son of the United States, right? Like so, it's like this alternative world in which in 2016 they elected a female president. Okay. And so like her son, who's also like half Mexican, I want to say,
Mhm.
he falls in love with a prince of England.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just like this romantic comedy about
Mhm.
yeah, this gay diplomatic love
International.
that cannot be.
royal-
That cannot be.
Oh.
Because a prince cannot be gay.
Right.
Yeah. It's so silly, and at the same time, I'm
You
like,
love it.
of course.
Love it.
Uh, it's okay. I'm into it.
Okay.
But it's almost like she took a poll of like what women would find erotic.
Mhm.
And I was like, great, I'll write that.
You're saying you find it erotic?
So you know how like women have a thing for watching gay porn?
I've heard something about this, but I don't know that it's exclusive.
I don't know if it's exclusive
I
either.
mean, obviously it's not.
So there's something about that.
Okay.
And then maybe erotic's the wrong word, but then it's like also got like like politics in it. Because like the kind of like fascination that we have on like the royal family, and then the kind of fascination we have on the president and like that whole family, that whole situation, what it's like living in the Oval Office. So it's got like all
People
of
don't
these.
live in the Oval Office, but
No, not the
The
Oval,
White House.
The White House. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, it's got like all of that, and it's just so I don't know. It's so silly.
oh my god. Red, white, and royal blue.
Yeah,
That's the worst part of it. That's the worst bit.
isn't it?
Who did that? Who did that?
I mean, people are loving this book
In your club? What club or in the world?
in the world.
Well,
Like, we
that
didn't
doesn't
just
surprise
find
me.
this. Red, white, and royal blue. Casey McQuiston. It's got
Person
4.5
name's Casey.
stars, 1,918 reviews.
Cool.
Instant New York Times and USA Today bestseller. Best book of the year for Vogue, NPR, Vanity Fair, and more.
What year?
Like this year, I think. 2019, sorry.
Cool. I guess.
Happens when Mary's first son falls in love with the Prince of Wales.
Oh my god. The one thing that makes me happy about not being in a book club is not having to read shit like that I don't want to read.
Yeah.
It would feel like school.
I almost wanted to, when you sent me that other book
Which one?
on Instagram, the like,
Ah.
I forget what it's called.
There's like a few in that post, but yeah.
I just wanted to suggest that, and I was like, oh, they wouldn't. I don't know if they would be up for it.
Do people just throw out suggestions? Or?
We've been trying to pick lighter books during this time.
I see.
Yeah.
Goodbye.